Hi, welcome to Reddit Tea Time. I, 33 female, and my best friend, 31 female, are extremely close since childhood. We've been through our whole lives together, and she is the closest, most important friend in my life. We get along wonderfully, that is, except one weird thing. For context, I'm taller and have always been naturally slim, while she's short, was naturally thick, and gradually became obese during our 20s. Coming back to the weird thing, she has a habit of forcing food on me when she's hungry and wants a snack. For example, when we hang out, she'll keep filling my plate even though I tell her that I'm full. She'll keep opening snacks and then telling me to take some repeatedly. She'll fill me a glass of soda when I clearly say I don't want it. But she wants more food, snacks or drinks, so she'll take some for her and force some on me as well. In the past 25 years of friendship, I've said nothing of this, and I generally manage to go around it. I don't know why she does this, but I've always thought she feels better if she's not eating alone. Strange habit. Fast forward to this weekend. We hung out at her house for a few hours, just the two of us. The whole time, she was commenting on how I'm drinking slowly. 1 glass of wine in the time period she drank 3, and not eating anything. There was only potato chips and similar snacks. In the end, she took out large ice creams, and while I said I didn't want ice cream, she opened both and passed one to me. I then said, "Girl, you don't seem to understand that I physically cannot eat as much as you. Thank you, but I'm really full from my lunch. The glass of wine is enough for me." She got mad and said I insulted her, and that she's offering out of politeness. She's still passive-aggressive towards me. Both her husband and mine think I was harsh on her and was throwing my thin body in her face. That was not my intention at all, and I would never intentionally hurt her. I apologized for hurting her feelings. Am I the bonehead? How could I have communicated this better? Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. Ask anyone with an Italian or Asian mom or grandma. They're always pushing food at you. There is no way to politely refuse because they refuse to accept your refusal. Not the bonehead. She's trying to make herself feel better about her own eating choices. If you're eating too, then it's fine. Not the bonehead. She needs therapy. She needs to understand that the only reason why she's forcing you to eat more is probably because she can reduce the guilt that generates her overeating. Not the bonehead. Forcing food on you like that over your protest is objectionable. It leaves you either awkwardly not eating with food in front of her or manipulating you into eating something you don't want to. A long period of that boneheadedness is far more significant than one remark that was at worst insensitive. I'm 25 female. My sister is 27 female. We had babies within 2 weeks of each other, and our sons are now 3 and 5 weeks old. Her son is breastfed and mine is not. I needed to get surgery recently, and because my son's father isn't around, my sister and brother-in-law offered to babysit my son while I was in the hospital, 3 days total, free of charge. When I came home today, I walked into my son on my sister's breast, which I actually didn't have an issue to begin with because it was probably easier to breastfeed him than make bottles. But she told me after she had thrown out all of the garbage I was feeding him and she was going to pump and donate milk to him. I was kind of in shock, so I didn't react straight away, but I went to the bathroom and called the police on her. Apparently, what she did wasn't a crime, and the child is being fed, so they couldn't even do anything about it. My sister then blew up at me, saying it was completely wrong of me to call the police on her when she was just trying to help. I told her she dumped 14 cans of formula without even consulting me, and currently had nothing to replace it with. Just plans to. She now wants me to pay her for the babysitting she did, but I told her I can't even afford to replace the formula while I'm on maternity leave, so I won't be paying her for the babysitting. She ended up storming out and blocked me on everything. Our parents were able to replace 2 of the cans she threw out, but can't do much else. They also think I was a jerk for calling the police on her because getting a record could affect her government job and therefore my nephew. Am I the bonehead? Edit. There's no way my sister would have replaced the formula. She's completely against it and has been vocal about her dislike of me using it. Edit 2. My sister didn't have a supply already pumped, nor has she even used her pump yet. So not only did she not have anything to replace what she threw out, She had no idea how her body would respond to a pump. The only way she could have been feeding my son over the next few weeks would be to put him on the boob, which would take time away from me being with him. Edit 3. My sister went to my house for the child minding. Now for some comments. 14 cans of formula is no joke, not the bonehead. Not the bonehead. She just literally dumped hundreds of dollars of formula you bought because of her own personal opinions on formula. I would have done the same thing in your position. Not the bonehead. She destroyed your property, and I'm baffled how destroying property is supposed to be okay because she breastfed at that moment. She owes you for 14 cans of formula that she stole and threw away. She can disagree with you all she wants, but theft is theft, and now that she's blocked you everywhere, she's leaving your child to go hungry. Small claims court? I, 32 female, am an artist, and I recently had one of the biggest commissions of my career, a large mural for a local business. It took me weeks of planning and about 10 days of actual painting. I stored the final sketches and painted samples in my home office. Last week, my sister, 36 female, and her family came over for a visit. She has a 6-year-old son, Ethan. While we were chatting in the living room, Ethan went off to play. A little while later, I walked into my office to find Ethan had found my watercolors and decided to add to my sketches and painted samples. He essentially ruined weeks of work. I was furious and immediately asked my sister to supervise her child more closely. My sister apologized, and when I mentioned she needed to cover the damages and the cost to redo the work, she scoffed and said it was just a drawing and that kids will be kids. The business was expecting the mural installation in less than a week. I had to work around the clock to redo everything. It cost me sleep, extra materials, and a rush fee to get some supplies delivered ASAP. My sister is now angry with me for sending her an invoice for the damages, and we haven't spoken in days. My family is divided. Some say I'm right for wanting to be compensated, while others think I'm being too harsh on a child's innocent mistake. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. All of these parents thinking their little angels don't need supervision and can do no wrong give parents a bad name. That child should not be allowed to just wander off unsupervised. He could have gotten hurt by trying to play with something dangerous. Secondly, a 6-year-old should by now know that they need to ask to use something that isn't theirs. He could have asked, and you could have given him some scrap paper, some paints, and 2 old brushes to knock himself out. Third, because of the parents' lack of parenting, the child cost the business a lot of money. Now the mother won't pay because family. And apparently, it's okay to cost your family money without consequences. You are not harsh on the child. You're harsh on the parent for not parenting that child. Not the bonehead. 6 years old is plenty old enough to know not to mess around with other people's stuff. Not the bonehead. The child is just being a child who probably just saw a drawing and wanted to draw too. But your sister, laughing at your work and not realizing what it means in hours, money, and investment, it would drive me mad. You're totally in the right there to insist on the damages being covered up. I would send her the price of the extra supply you had to buy and the contract you had for the painting, so she realizes it is work. Last Thursday, I, 36 male, got a call from my son's school telling me I needed to come and collect him because he had passed out during class. My son has passed out a good few times before, so we've made sure he knows what to do when he starts to feel faint to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. However, when I arrived at the school, my son was holding an ice pack to his head. When I asked about it, the nurse told me he had hit his head when he fell. I wondered why he hadn't laid down like we taught him to do. I brushed it off and decided to ask him about it later as he was still kind of out of it. The next day, I asked him about it, and what he told me made my blood boil. Apparently, when my son had first started to feel like he was going to pass out, he tried to tell his teacher. When he stood up to talk to her, he was immediately yelled at to sit back down. The next time he tried to tell her, she told him that he didn't look sick, so he wasn't allowed to go to the nurse's office. Then his class was doing an activity that required standing for practically the rest of the lesson. Before the activity started, my son yet again told his teacher that he felt like he was going to pass out and asked if he could sit the activity out. The teacher responded by yelling at him, claiming he was just being lazy and was making excuses. My son's friend was getting worried about him, so he told the teacher, who then started yelling at his friend, accusing them both of trying to get out of the lesson. Not even a minute later, my son passed out, and according to his friend and a couple of other classmates, she acted very shocked, as if she hadn't been ignoring him, trying to tell her how he felt for the last 15 minutes. I am extremely worried about the impact this will have on my son, as when the fainting first started, he didn't tell any of his teachers as he was scared that they were going to yell at him. This resulted in quite a few injuries from falling. It has taken a while for him to start telling them when he's feeling faint, and I'm afraid this incident will cause him to stop asking and he'll hurt himself. I had wanted to go down to the school that day, but my son had stayed off and my wife wasn't home from work yet. The following Monday, I arranged an appointment with the principal. After I explained what had happened, he called in my son's teacher, who then tried to deny the fact that he ever told her anything and he had just randomly collapsed. This is where I may be the bonehead. By this point, I was mad. I began to scream at her, yelling about how my son could have gotten hurt. I was so mad I hadn't even noticed that she had started to cry. By that point, I was asked to leave by the principal. My wife and some of my friends think I'm in the right, but my parents and the other half of my friends think I went too far. I don't know about this one. What do you guys think? Am I the bonehead? Edit. I'm just going to answer some frequently asked questions that the answers weren't included in the original post. We're not in the US, so a 504 plan is not in place. However, we do have something similar. My son is in the middle of getting a diagnosis. Doctors say the most likely option is POTS. My son is 13, and I would say he's a fairly well-behaved kid, only sometimes getting in trouble for stupid stuff that 13-year-old boys do. He usually stops after he gets a verbal warning. We've never had any major issues with his behavior. Yes, the teacher was aware of his episodes. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. The teacher repeatedly yelled at your son, berated him, caused him to injure himself physically, and quite possibly scared him away from communicating his needs in the future. She is a bully. When confronted, she started lying to cover up her behavior and eventually crying, boo-hoo. That's what bullies do. Bully, lie, then cry when not let off the hook. You losing your cool is completely understandable. Your parents don't need to have an opinion about it, and your wife is in your corner. Consult a lawyer. I bet the principal won't ask a lawyer to leave. I'm assuming your son has a diagnosed medical condition that is on file with the school, and his teachers have been made aware of his condition and how to prevent injuries. At this point, I think I would take my concerns to the Board of Education and let them know that you intend to speak with an attorney. Yelling at the teacher was probably not your best move, but I certainly understand when it comes to the safety of our children. It's hard to maintain our cool sometimes. I'm going to say not the bonehead. OP replied, he's not diagnosed yet, but we are working on it. However, the school is aware of his repeated fainting spells, and a protocol is in place for whenever he has an episode. Not the bonehead. That teacher is a bully who deserved getting called out. Yelling after she straight up lied is warranted. If you're in the US, please get this condition and his accommodations into a 504 or IEP plan if it's not there already. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. If you like these stories, please consider subscribing. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Reddit story. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Bye for now.